The Galactic Council chamber fell silent as Ambassador Mia Chen stood before the assembled representatives of 43 star systems. Her dark eyes swept across the semicircular arrangement of alien dignitaries, each one radiating barely contained hostility. The holographic displays around the room showed the aftermath of the Battle of Kepler-4 to be a human victory so decisive, so utterly devastating, that it had sent shockwaves through the established galactic order. "You stand accused," proclaimed High Adjudicator Vrelinth, his three mandibles clicking in synchronized disapproval, "of violating the accords of honorable combat. Your species employed tactics deemed unsavory by civilized warfare standards." Mia remained perfectly still, her expression unreadable. Beside her, Commander Kevin Rodriguez, the architect of the controversial victory, stood at parade rest, his military uniform crisp despite the 30-hour journey from Earth. A slight smirk played at the corner of his mouth. The Vaxian representative, a crystalline being that refracted light in angry reds and oranges, spoke next. "You fired upon retreating vessels. You targeted supply lines. You employed psychological warfare that caused enemy commanders to surrender without honor. Most egregiously, you refused to meet our fleet in open combat. Instead, using guerrilla tactics and ambush strategies, we lost 12,000 warriors," added the Corthian delegate, her scaled face twisted in disgust. "Not in glorious battle, but to sabotage, misinformation, and what you humans call asymmetric warfare. This is not how wars are fought among the civilized species of the galaxy." Mia finally spoke, her voice calm and measured. "With respect, Adjudicator, we followed every rule outlined in the Accords to the letter." "The letter, perhaps," Vrelinth conceded, his translator rendering his native clicks into galactic standard. "But you violated the spirit. For 17,000 cycles, warfare among the Council species has been conducted with honor. Fleets meet in designated combat zones. Battles are fought with dignity. The defeated are allowed to retreat and regroup. You humans have corrupted this noble tradition with your creativity." Kevin's smirk widened slightly. Mia caught it from the corner of her eye and suppressed her own smile. "May I present our defense, Adjudicator?" Mia asked. "Proceed." Mia gestured, and the holographic display shifted to show Earth's history files. Images of ancient battlefields flickered into view: Roman legions, medieval sieges, World War trenches, guerrilla fighters in jungles and mountains. Humanity has been at war with itself for our entire recorded history. Mia began. "We have fought over resources, territory, ideology, and religion. We have developed warfare into an art form, a science, and sometimes a necessary evil. What you call unsavory tactics, we call survival." The Galactic Council members shifted uncomfortably. War among the stars had always been a ritualized affair, more sport than genuine conflict. Casualties were expected, but wholesale slaughter was considered barbaric. When the Corthian hegemony invaded Kepler-4 to be, Mia continued, "You expected us to meet your fleet in open space. You expected traditional battle formations, prolonged exchanges of fire, and an eventual negotiated settlement. Instead, Commander Rodriguez did something you found unconscionable. He studied your tactics, identified your weaknesses, and exploited them mercilessly." Kevin stepped forward, his smirk now a full grin. "You want to know what I told my command staff when we saw your fleet approaching?" The chamber waited in tense silence. "I said, 'They're fighting like they're in a parade, not a war.'" Outraged clicks, hisses, and harmonic protests erupted from the assembly. Vrelinth pounded his resonant staff against the floor, demanding order. Kevin's expression hardened. "You broadcast your fleet movements on open channels for transparency. You arranged your ships in aesthetically pleasing formations that left your flanks exposed. You announced your intention to attack 48 hours in advance to allow civilians to evacuate. You even paused hostilities during your cultural rest periods. This is civilized warfare." The Vaxian representative protested. "This is suicide." Kevin shot back. "On Earth, we learned millennia ago that wars aren't won by following your enemy's rules. They're won by making your enemy follow yours." Mia resumed control of the presentation. We did not fire on retreating vessels, we fired on vessels withdrawing to regroup and attack again. We did not violate the Accord's prohibition on civilian casualties. Kepler 442b's population suffered 0 losses. We did target supply lines, because starving an enemy's war machine is more effective than fighting it head-on. And yes, we used psychological operations, because convincing your enemy to surrender saves lives on both sides. You ambushed our reinforcement fleet from behind an asteroid field, the Corthian delegate accused. You used civilian transponder codes to confuse our targeting systems. You hacked our communication networks and fed false intelligence to their commanders. All perfectly legal under the Accords, Mia replied smoothly. The treaty prohibits weapons of mass destruction, biological warfare, and deliberate civilian targeting. It says nothing about deception, intelligence operations, or unconventional tactics. We checked. Thoroughly, Kevin crossed his arms. Here's what really bothers you: we won. Not just won, but dominated. Your honorable fleet was defeated by a force 1/3 its size, using strategies you considered beneath contempt, and now you're terrified. Terrified. Vrelinth's mandibles flared. Of what? Of what happens when the rest of the galaxy realizes your way of war is obsolete? Mia answered. You've been fighting by gentlemen's rules for so long that you've forgotten what real warfare looks like. Humanity hasn't had that luxury. She pulled up another image: the mushroom cloud over Hiroshima, the trenches of Verdun, the siege of Stalingrad. We have seen the absolute worst of what war can be. We have stared into the abyss of total annihilation and pulled ourselves back. The tactics we employed at Kepler 442b, those were restrained, measured, designed to achieve victory with minimum casualties. The chamber fell into uncomfortable silence as the implication sank in. Kevin's voice dropped to barely above a whisper, but in the acoustically perfect hall, everyone heard him clearly. You think we violated the spirit of your Accords. Let me tell you what violating those Accords would actually look like. It would look like your entire fleet disappearing before you even knew we were there. It would look like total communications blackout, followed by systematic elimination of every military asset you possess. It would look like war conducted with the full brutal efficiency that humanity is capable of when we stop holding back. He paused, letting that sink in. But we didn't do that. We followed your rules, adapted them to our strengths, and won. If that frightens you, perhaps you should reconsider challenging humanity in the first place. Mia addressed the council formally. Earth moves for immediate dismissal of all charges. We violated no laws. We simply fought to win. Vrelinth looked around at the assembly, seeing the fear and uncertainty in their expressions. The Galactic Council had maintained peace for millennia through ritualized combat that limited destruction. But now a new player had entered the game, one that understood war not as theater, but as an existential struggle requiring every advantage. The charges, Vrelinth finally announced, are dismissed. However, the Council will be reviewing the Accords of Honorable Combat to address ambiguities. As Mia and Kevin left the chamber, he leaned toward her and whispered, Think they'll actually update their tactics? Mia smiled. Eventually, right after they finish being terrified of us. Good, Kevin replied. Fear makes for better peacekeepers than honor ever did. Behind them, the Galactic Council began the difficult conversation about what it meant when the newest species in the galaxy turned out to be the oldest warriors in the room.